Hello, Find My Past. It's Friday, and that means another Fridays Live with Find My Past, Find My Past from home. We're always so excited to be here with you on Fridays. It's our favorite day of the week for many reasons, but the first and most important reason is because we always release new records on Fridays, and it's just fun, right? Who doesn't love new records every single week? Fantastic. I am back from 2 weeks of holiday vacation. So I am rested and chill. Of course I am. And I'm right back into things doing Fridays Live today. We have Jessie with us in comments today. So please do say hello to Jessie. It's always great to be here with you guys. And I couldn't imagine actually a better way to start like back to work, after holiday, is getting to hang out with all of my Find My Past friends. So really good to have you all and to see you all again. So lots of you are already saying hello. So thanks for that. Keep the chat going today. Always love to see your activities. Let's see, Roz is with us out in Massachusetts. Hot and humid in Massachusetts. So much crazy weather the last couple weeks. I've been trying to catch up on things. I know the UK has just been ridiculous. My own state of Colorado has had some pretty crazy weather. I was actually in Hawaii, and the weather was pretty average, actually, for that location for this time of year. So I kept reading all this stuff, and I was like, wow, everything's going on. And I'm just over here like, with a breeze. It was great. All right, Andrea's with us from Stoke-on-Trent. Anya's with us. Of course, it's gray in Fife. Hopefully the temperature has come down over there. I think it has, I'm pretty sure. But I know you had some days of really intense heat. So I hope everybody was okay and had the resources you need. I know most of you don't have air conditioning in the UK and other tools to help you stay cool and healthy. So that was a real concern. I was really worried about a lot of you, actually. Sarah's with us from Wexford. Jane is here. Paul, of course, from Warrington. Vancouver Island, heat warnings in BC from CV Bob 47. Gina's with us in Lancashire. Sue Moon, of course, is with us in Guildford. Hi, Sue. Andrea's with us. Linda's having problems with the Facebook platform, so she's watching from YouTube today. So hopefully that works out better for you, Linda. I hope you are able to get that figured out. Jillian's up in Winnipeg. Gosh, all sorts of you today. This is great. We're gonna have a big, good group. That's good. Jenny's in Somerset, and we've got Scotland represented in Norwich and Roscoe, Illinois. That's exciting. And Cambridgeshire, I'm getting better. Okay. I don't really know what just happened. My screen went black. I hope it didn't interrupt you guys. It says I'm still live. Oh my gosh. Okay. Bev's saying, aircon, what's that? Yeah, I know. Most of you don't have it. It's just been a crazy summer, I think. A crazy summer. And Anya saying that, the pets, her cat wasn't too happy. I definitely saw a lot of that too. Like a lot of people trying to take care of their animals and their friends and their family members. Oh, I'm back. Okay, good. Thank you. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. And the gremlins are done. They've done their thing and they're good to go. So I'll admit that I have not had a lot of time to prep this because I literally started work 2 hours ago after 2 weeks off. I don't even know. So this might be short and sweet today. But there is still a lot to talk about. I'm particularly excited to talk to you guys about the newspapers that we published this week because I have had a really good morning with our newspapers. But let's talk about new records first. Of course, if you haven't seen the new records yet, you can go directly to the Find My Past blog and find the list of materials there. Jessie's going to share it in the chat for us, but it's also in the post on Facebook. It's readily available, and it will also be in your email, assuming you're signed up for our emails. Make sure you're reading that every week because those are particularly useful blog posts. They're written by the fabulous Jessie. Actually, she does a superior job. And we've published a lot of new foundational records this week. It's all about BMDs this week, you guys, which we love. Everybody loves new BMDs. Everybody loves updates to those collections because they're so vastly important. So we have 18,000 new records for Middlesex. Middlesex, I can never pronounce that one right. Anyway, 18,000 new records for New Brentford, Tottenham, and Edmonton. We have new baptisms from Surrey, 23,000 new records from Surrey. And we've updated the Greater London Burial Index as well. So check those out because, of course, we all know that those BMDs are just super, super important for our research, for the growth of our tree, for everything that we do. Those BMDs are crucial. And I'm already starting to see a couple of comments here. This one, Kim, you're offering me a fantastic segue, so thanks. I'm going to put this one up there. Kim found a mention of her parents in the papers. They discovered a gentleman who had been deceased in his chair for over a month in 1970. Wow. That's quite a story. I'm going to assume from your comment, Kim, that you didn't know that before, that this was a new story for you. Wow, that's crazy. In his chair for over a month. It sounds like that's out of a book, actually. So yeah, I read this novel, right? Just a fun read while I was on vacation, and crime, murder, mystery thing. And one of the victims had been dead for a week, and they described it in detail. And I was like, ew, I can't even imagine a month. That's insane. Okay. So great segue though, Kim. Thanks for that, because the newspapers this week, this is like one of my best weeks ever. I got excited by the list because there's so much variety on this week's list of papers. And again, if you don't have the list in front of you, just click on the link to the blog and you'll see them all pop up. It's really vast. It's really cool. It's a cool week because we have everything from just kind of standard like UK newspapers. We have international titles, but we also have a huge year range of materials to work with. So that's really cool, right? Like it's a little something for everybody. So I had some great moments already this morning, but I want to give you the list really quick. So I'm going to read this off, but again, go to the blog if you want to just see it for yourself. So there's an update to Eris's Birmingham Gazette. We added 1814, the year of 1814. I was told by our newspaper manager, Rose, that was a bit of a struggle to get that moving, get that online. So great job to the newspaper team for getting that. That is actually one of my most used papers in the collection because I have an ancestor or a suspected ancestor who's mentioned in that paper a number of times because of his occupation. So I use that paper all the time. It's like, kind of a very standard, almost dry paper, right? It's not very exciting to read, but he's mentioned so much that I'm just like, I love that paper. So I immediately checked it just to see if there were any new entries at all on this particular individual, because we just added that 1 year of 1814, and I found him right away, actually. So I'm like just adding to his timeline, which is super exciting. It actually was known as one of the 18th century's premier papers and had an excellent reputation during its run. So it's a great paper, Eris's Birmingham Gazette. We also added the Birmingham Weekly Mercury, a number of years for that. So kind of some sporadic. There's some interwar period, 1924-26, 1928 through 35, and then 1996 and 1999, so all the way up to 1999. We added the Colonial Standard and Jamaica Dispatch for our international fans and those of you working in the colonies and in the Caribbean. We added the Kent Messenger, the Kentish Express. I'm not saying all of them. I'm just giving you some of the highlights. We added the Mirror from Trinidad and Tobago, another one for our Caribbean researchers. That one runs from 1899 to 1900, then 1912 to 13, and then 1916. So a couple sporadic years, but a good little collection to contribute to that Caribbean material that we've been working on. We added the Shields Daily Gazette. There are a number of years for that particular publication. That one actually includes both the World War I years and the World War II years. So That's a fantastic one if you happen to be researching in that particular area. The Surrey Herald was published. The Voice of St. Lucia was published for 1889. So a number of international titles. I always get excited about that. I love those. But a number of also just some good core standard papers. One of the ones that I actually was most excited about was the Ottawa Free Press. We added the year of 1910. And I haven't really had a chance to play around in the Ottawa Free Press yet. We published the first batch, I think, a couple of weeks ago. So this morning I got a chance to do that and just put in a little bit just to see if anything right away would pop up. And I was excited by what I found. So let me share with you a couple of my highlights. I'm going to go, oops. My little blip earlier caused this to kind of get a little delayed. All right. So first I'm going to start with Aris's Birmingham Gazette. I started the newspaper section by talking about this one. I love this paper because of the frequency in which my ancestors mentioned. Again, we added the year of 1814. And you can see, let me zoom in on this. This is just a list of the creditors for someone who is going bankrupt. And down here, we've got John Lawrence Silversmith. Now, if you have watched any of my sessions about my Birmingham research, John Lawrence, the silversmith, will be very familiar to you, although it's been a while since I've talked about him. But that's my guy. I know he was the only John Lawrence silversmith working in the area during that time frame. So I know for sure it's him. And this allows me to just put one more year into that timeline of, I know he was in Birmingham. I know he was in this location. I know he was doing this job. He was doing this work. He's got, mentions in the paper, and this isn't the only one. This is just the first one I found. But that's exciting, right? It's another little notch on the research list. And I love being able to add in those little tiny details because it helps to eventually build that big picture that we're all looking for. So that was my good find this morning. That was the first good find I made today. The second one, it was actually in one of the titles I haven't mentioned yet. This is the Sports Argus, and this is one of the titles that actually goes pretty current. Let me double check my years for you really quick. The Sports Argus that we published this week hits a number of years in the 1980s, and then 1992, and then 95 and 96. So really modern time frame. Starting in 1980 up through 1996, kind of sporadically. But these titles are fantastic, right? I don't do a lot of sport history necessarily, but my daughter is an athlete, and we just got home from a pretty major competition that was right before our vacation. So I actually did a search for her sport in a historical sense. And came across this article, Soccer American Style. And I immediately sent it to all the soccer guys or the football guys at Findmypast on the team, right? Because this just, we have this joke all the time. I'm the American, and I get a lot of ribbing, I guess, about football versus soccer. I love it. Razzmatazz makes you enjoy games, good or bad. And the whole article describes, this is from 1977. So it's talking about how they had cheerleaders and majorettes on the field and all this sideline entertainment and a mascot and a bunny costume and it's like, you're going to enjoy this. You're not just here for the game. You must love it. And this was just such a cool article to find. It actually goes over 2 pages, and it was quite fun to read. So just a fun little tidbit of the cultural differences, right? Even all the way up through, kind of a more modern period is always fun for me. And Liam's with us. Thank you, Liam, for watching. He says there's a lot of requests actually for the Sports Argus through our customer service office. So he's going to have a browse over the weekend. That's great. I didn't actually realize it was such a highly requested title. So that's exciting. How delightful, right? So maybe, Liam, you can start sharing information about Soccer American Style. Razzmatazz. Just the use of the word razzmatazz makes me grin. Okay, and then my third discovery this morning, which was actually probably the best one of them all. I took a look through the Ottawa Free Press Just really quickly, I only had a couple of minutes, and I was actually searching for the location. I have ancestors who were in Alberta, and they were in three little tiny towns that were all settled by members of the same faith. They were Moravians, so they had immigrated from Russia. And so everybody in those little towns, they're all connected, whether they're related biologically or they're related by marriage. They are in this teeny tiny environment and community. And so there's connections to all of them, right? So it's one of my favorite projects to work on because it's all fan research, friends, associates, and neighbors. Because there's not, they literally knew everybody, right? There was, I think at one point there was only like 500 people in the community. And my ancestors were some of the ones who originally settled the town of Bruderheim, which you see highlighted here on the search. And when I put in Bruderheim as a search term, this article popped up right away. Trial for murder the second time. And this individual is charged with stabbing his victim and setting fire to his store. So I've never heard this story before, but I have heard Ludwig's name before. I have a copy of the local minister's diary. He kept a very detailed daily diary, and the local historical society had transcribed it and made it available for purchase. So I actually acquired this a number of years ago, and I've used it as a resource ever since because it mentions my ancestors by name, right? It tells me when everybody was born and when they were baptized, when they got married. I mean, down to like the time of birth, right? Because he attended most of those events. So this journal is really important to the research, but as a result, I know just about everybody's name in town. So Ludwig here, I didn't realize was charged with stabbing. The minister didn't mention that, that I remember. So this is intriguing. I'm going to have to go back and look at my notes on this community and see what else I can find about this guy, because I had never heard this story before. So I had a really great, exciting morning I had a really good, exciting morning in our new newspapers. I just got distracted by your guys' comments. This is great. Liam saying, I'll only share if you agree to call it football moving forward. You know what? I'm not going to agree to that because habits are really hard to break, and I've called it soccer my entire life. Like, I'm trying. But I will note that when you put in the word soccer or football for an emoji, it comes up with the American version. Just saying. That's great. We love it. You gotta love it. All right, cool. So that's my discoveries on newspapers this morning. A quick down and dirty, like really quick review. Like I said, I only had a couple hours to really even get back into work world. But a lot of really fun titles. So even if the BMDs don't excite you, although they should, this week's BMDs, you should absolutely be excited about the newspapers because there's a lot to discover there. Heather saying, please no more sport. You got it, Heather. We will move on because I'm not a sport person either, really. Okay, today's question of the week. I didn't even have a chance to put this in the little banner thing, I don't think. I did not. Let me do that really quick. So today's question of the week is basically doing this on the fly. What adventures did your ancestor have? Do you know of any adventures? Like, I thought of things like African safaris and trips to, tropical islands. Of course I did, because I'm just back from vacation. And I had this most incredible experience, and I want to make sure that at some point in the near future, I actually, kind of document what our vacation was like, because we had the chance to go in these little, I don't know how to describe them, underwater scooters and see all the underwater life, right? The fish and the turtles and stuff. And it actually was like really close to a turtle, like a sea turtle. That was crazy. And my daughter held this starfish that was like this big. It was nuts. And it was this most incredible thing. And it got me thinking about, like, did my ancestors ever have a chance to do this kind of stuff? I don't know for sure about my own family, actually. So I was hoping that some of you would have some stories to share. I know that there were a couple of comments already. Kim says, not so much a direct ancestor, but cousins of those that did. Rio de Janeiro in the 1930s, New Zealand and Australia in the 1900s and 1910s, North America in the 1840s, back to distant cousins in the 1600s who had pilgrimages to Rome. Oh, that's interesting. And some who settled in St. Kitts. So yeah, Kim, your family members, yeah, they saw a lot of stuff. That's cool. And I'm kind of trying to put myself into the perspective, like someone going to New Zealand and Australia in the 1900s. So they knew about and had seen pictures of things like kangaroos, right? But, and possibly even had some in England, I don't know, in a zoo, maybe. But seeing that in real life, like, were they, I don't know, I don't know. I'm not even sure what I'm trying to say, actually. It's fascinating to me how we can view life through our ancestors' eyes. Like, did they have exotic travels? Genuinely don't know. I don't think that my ancestors did. But I'm really, really curious as to what other stories you guys have come up with. So here's one. Let's see. Andrew says, one of my great-great-grandfathers joined the army in 1850, sent to India and China, and served till 1866. Wonder if he came back with a taste for spicy food. Yeah, Andrew, that's such a good question. That's the exact type of thing like my brain has been going into. Like, how did these, even a military adventure, how did that expand and broaden his perspective, or did it? Did he come back and say, well, actually, I'm just going to be absolutely British from here on out, or Scottish, or whatever you are, Andrew? I don't remember where you're located. I think you're in Scotland. Did it expand their horizons, or did it kind of make them close in a little bit? I don't know. Anya says, one of my ancestors was born in St. Kitts and moved to Glasgow. So the opposite. They came from somewhere that we might think of as like very tropical and a little bit like adventurous, and went back to Glasgow. Her father was a soldier, so I assume her mother was traveling with her father, and that's why she was born there. Yeah, probably. I wonder how long she was there? Was she old enough to remember St. Kitts and like think fondly back on that experience? Or, did they end up back in Glasgow like as a baby or something? Lots of military stories, and I think a lot of us are probably going to find this. Rose, hi Rose, thank you for watching. My 4 times great-grandfather was born in Dublin, was in the Royal Navy, and was sent to the Caribbean in the 1830s, but he got sent back. The climate didn't agree with him. I would have probably been one of those people. I admit I got so sunburned. I am definitely not a Caribbean-style person. I don't think I could live there. So I totally understand that. My Irish heritage does not like that climate. But since you've said that, it reminds me that I do have someone that I've researched before. Not a direct relation, but someone who moved from the East Coast of the United States to Colorado, actually, Southern Colorado, for the climate. And I wonder if, that's another really good, strong reason. Like, a couple of you have given military stories. And now there's a climate experience. That was probably a big incentive for people to kind of move around the world and try something new, because, a lot of people moved for their health. Right. Colorado actually was a big spot for that because we have a lot of natural springs. So it was one of those places where people went to kind of recover from illness and that kind of thing. So interesting point, Rose. Very interesting point. That's an opportunity for research, right? If we're not sure if our ancestor had adventures, we could think about those kinds of situations, medical situations and health things, and different incentives to travel around and kind of have these adventures. Let's see. Okay, Jane says, a lot of my ancestors were mariners. I think they had enough adventure crossing oceans and visiting new lands. A great uncle couldn't settle in Yorkshire after the Boer War, went to the US looking for new adventure. Oh, I wonder where he ended up. I would think that the military influence, would definitely be very impactful, right? Because you're in the military, you're following orders, you're doing the thing you may or may not agree with. Yeah, interesting. And then the comment here, Jane, about mariners, like you think about people in the Merchant Navy and all those other types of occupations as well, not just military, but seafaring occupations over the course of history. That's, another potential clue that your ancestor may have seen or done something that you don't know about yet. These are all giving me some really good ideas about how to research my own ancestors. So thank you very much for this. I'm really glad I asked this question now. Ingrid says, my grandfather served in India during World War I, inspired my father to volunteer to go to India during his national service. So 2 generations. How interesting would it have been to sit down and interview them about the differences between what your grandfather saw and what your father saw? I wonder if they ever had those conversations. So part of our trip to Hawaii, we went to the Pearl Harbor Memorial. My husband had some ancestors who were at Pearl Harbor when it was attacked. And my dad was in the Navy and was stationed at Pearl Harbor for many years in the 1960s, I want to say, late 1960s. So when I got back, one of the first things I did was called my dad and was like, hey, this is what I saw. Tell me about what you saw when you were in Hawaii. We kind of had that conversation. So, and we're still having it as he looks at my pictures and videos and things. But always good to kind of get that perspective of, what was it like for you? What was it like for the person before them? Okay. Ellen, great something uncle, great grand something, left Ohio, painted coaches in Wisconsin before statehood. Okay, so when it was a territory, ended up in California, founding a town famous for its healing spring water. Interesting. Yeah, good. That's a great story. There's so much there to unpack, right? You could definitely research quite a lot there. Their connection to Wisconsin before statehood is rife with that opportunity. I find the territories, the states before they were states, were really quite good at keeping records because they were probably pursuing statehood at some point and needed to write everything down. Ended up in California. Of course, California is a huge destination spot for migration across North America. So that's pretty interesting as well, and founded a town. So there's going to be all sorts of stuff there. That's a good adventure. Anya had a distant cousin who was killed at Pearl Harbor. Yeah. My husband's ancestor, it was his grandfather actually who was there, and then a couple of his brothers as well. And his grandfather was president of the Survivors Association for many years, was heavily involved in the Survivors Association. So it was a pretty special trip to go see that site. Anya's got a good story here on her 2 times great-grandfather moved to Queensland, Australia from Scotland in the 1870s, and then moved back. He had family in Scotland, but later abandoned that family in the 1810s and moved back to New South Wales. Had to do with his skills as a coal miner. Yeah, right? So we've got a couple of primary themes kind of poking through here. We've got the ability to have adventure just for adventure's sake. Not many of our ancestors, I don't think, would have been in that kind of financial circumstance, but it is possible. We have military taking them around the world. We have health and climate taking them around the world. And then occupation now with seafaring occupations and also things like mining that certainly moved across a number of different continents. Interesting. Very, very interesting, you guys. This is good stuff. I'm going back to look at some of the comments, make sure I didn't miss anything. Jesse, your comment about the video and me making friends with the fish, that makes me laugh. Yeah, okay, I don't think, let's see. I don't think I missed anybody. We started talking about sports a lot, and then we had to stop, which is okay. Okay, yeah, it looks like I got just about everybody's, and I'm up to date, which is great. Correct. So, couple of updates I want you to watch for. There are some really exciting family history activities happening in the month of August in Australia and New Zealand. It's Family History Month for that part of the world. It is for other places as well, but New Zealand and Australia really do Family History Month well. There are a number of conferences and presentations and sessions, many of which will be made available online. If you have interest in Australia, New Zealand research, August is a great month to learn about it because there is so much activity around Family History Month. So please do pay attention to the state libraries in the area of your interest for those countries, the historical and genealogical societies, as well as organizations like Find My Past. We have a couple of sessions, I think at least, scheduled with one of those events. Brian Donovan is doing a couple of talks on the 1921 census, specifically around how to find Irish in the 1921 census. So if you have interest in Australia and New Zealand, pay attention to what's happening in the community this month, because there's a lot going on and there's a lot to learn and see. I will definitely be taking advantage of some of those webinars and sessions, and try to take advantage of that opportunity to learn a little bit more. I don't have a lot of research in Australia and New Zealand, but I'm always eager to learn. So as we get into August, start to kind of look for those things. If you're not members of different Facebook groups and finding that kind of information easily, just take a look at all the different state libraries. They usually have a listing on their websites of events, and then the major genealogy societies will certainly have offerings as well for the month. And yeah, Lloyd makes a great comment. People in the UK have tons of DNA matches in Australia and New Zealand, and those in the US and Canada as well. So there's always an opportunity to connect. I would say, of course I'm going to say, if you have a tree out there, if you have an online tree, put it on Find My Past if it's not already. It's an incredible platform to connect with your distant relations kind of around the world, wherever they are today. And it's super, super easy to upload your GEDCOM. So if you have a GEDCOM file somewhere else out there, whether it's on software, a different website or whatever, just grab it and upload it to Find My Past. It doesn't cost you anything. You get hints, and you get the ability to connect with other researchers from literally around the world. So take advantage of those tools. There was something else I was going to do an update on, but now there's more comments on question of the week. So I'm going to go back to that, and I'll remember my other comment in a minute. Karen has a great story about her granddad got sent to Cairo during World War I. Her mom never knew. Oh, interesting. Obviously not a fun adventure, but I wonder what he thought of the people and the climate and the country in general. Yeah, I wonder why he never talked about it either. Was that I don't talk about my war life experience at all? Because that was certainly a traumatic event, and a lot of veterans came home and did not talk about those events. Or was it specifically the Cairo piece that he didn't refer to and didn't talk about? Really interesting. And yeah, so my dad, I refer to my dad a lot, but he is the veteran in my life. He served 18 years with the US Navy, and I've heard stories about his experiences my entire life, but still to this day, I'm still learning new things about his service. And finally, just last year, he let me look at his service record that he has. And I was like, whoa, my head is exploding with all this information. And 18 years is obviously a long career, but there's a lot to talk about, right? There's so many different stories. He had his favorites that he tells at every Christmas dinner, right? But there was so much more there, so much more to kind of probe into. And I'm really blessed, right? I'm really lucky that I have the chance to dig into some of that now while he's still with us, and can ask those questions. So yeah, interesting that your mom never knew, Karen, about your granddad's service in Cairo. Okay, Sue has a great granduncle who went out to Australia in the late 1800s after he was married. He was a minister and would have been there around the same time as Craig Revell Horwood's relatives. Okay, cool. That's neat. And that gives us another conduit for research, right? Traveling ministers. So it's occupational, but it's also religious, right? So there's different opportunities for research in that venue. So thank you, Sue, for that. And reminds me that I have my own traveling minister, theoretically. A family oral history tells me that my third or fourth great grandfather went from Wales to New York, early New York in Western New York before it was really settled and explored. As a minister from Wales. It was either him or his father. Don't know for sure which one yet. That's just the oral history that tells me that. Another opportunity for our ancestors to have a bit of adventure, right? So that's good. Yeah. Andrew says so many cousins moving to Canada and the US as coal miners. And South America too, right? South America has a huge Welsh population. descended from mining communities. John says his grandfather went to Norway and other places during World War II in the Royal Air Force. Oh, this is Daphne. Most of my family on the maternal side has the wanderlust. Paternal side are in Norfolk and have been there for centuries. You know, it makes me wonder, actually, it's interesting, wanderlust. It's such a good word, isn't it? My husband and I moved around a lot early in our marriage. We've lived in like 12 different states or something. I wonder what my descendants will say about us. It's interesting, right? Because it's all documented and ready. But we went from ski town to ski town basically for several years. Really, really cool to get that perspective, right? And to think about, what will they say about me in 100 years? And then we had that session a couple of weeks ago, if you haven't seen it, talking about traveling ancestors and entertainers with Josh Taylor. And he gave us perspective on his circus ancestors and their story and how he has researched them across a number of different continents, traveling with his circus. And like, that's another kind of occupational route that we can research, right? Is those entertainers. So good. So good. You guys, this is great. I love this. Such good stories. Okay. John's got living cousins in Trinidad, thanks to his early ancestors. Anya's got a grandpa who was in Egypt in World War II, waiting for military records still. A couple of you have mentioned that LDS Church are Mormons, a lot of distant Mormon cousins and pioneers coming over, I would imagine, to Utah. Very cool. Oh, and Karen's come back. Okay, so her mom never knew about any of it. Really, she didn't know he'd fought in World War I until I told her that I discovered it. That's incredible, actually, to think about that. So you go to war and then you come home and you have a family and you never speak of it in front of the children, at least. That's intense. That's really intense, actually. What a thought. Karen, thank you for sharing that story with us, because it's really powerful. And it really kind of makes you stop and go, yeah, the impact of this event on his life must have just been, I mean, I'm making big sweeping assumptions, but it must have been incredibly substantial. What a thing we do, you guys. What a thing we do in family history. We really run the gamut, don't we? We go from moments of pure joy all the way through this kind of emotional swing, all the way to this very retrospective and deeply introspective periods. Yeah, I don't have any words. It is just something. It is just really something what we do. Okay, Jane says, I'm going to get off that line. My great uncle went to the US, became a line walker for the railway. Interesting. I learned something about occupations today too. I was looking up my silversmith because I thought that I had seen a mention in another paper potentially, but they referred to him as a Japaner. And I'm not 100% that I'm saying it right, but I'm assuming. But it was someone who varnished kind of in that Japanese motif, that Japanese method, and apparently was quite popular in Britain, especially in the Victorian era. It turned out it wasn't my guy, but learned a little bit about interesting occupations today as well. So things like line walkers for the railway actually, absolutely remind me of those kinds of moments. Let's see. Oh, Roxanne saying hello, but leaving us all with this wonderful, juicy tidbit. Between phone calls with my great-grandfather's business partner, getting his stories of my great-grandparents. That's cool. That's a fantastic way to spend Friday for sure. Good job, Roxanne. I hope that you will update us on that. As you learn. That's very, very cool. Would be interesting too to see how you did the research and made those connections, or was this someone that your family has known and stayed connected to, perhaps? That might make for a nice little case study on fan research. Okay, so it looks like most of the question of the week stories are kind of slowing down. Oh, well, one more here. Let's put Lloyd's up. I don't know if you'd call it an adventure. And I think our definition of adventure today is pretty broad. But my double fourth cousin, that's something to stop and think about for a second, is considered the first Russian Salvation Army martyr. Martyr. Another fourth cousin negotiated to get the Mennonites out of Russia to Winnipeg. That I know about for sure, because my Canadian ancestors were in a similar situation. They were not Mennonites, they were Moravians, but very, very similar stories in terms of getting them out of Russia. Yeah, it's really interesting stuff, isn't it, Lloyd? Like I actually really love that that line of research because it's just historically fascinating. The negotiations between countries just to get small groups of people or large groups of people out and immigrated and displaced, and yeah, fascinating stuff. Okay, so lots of adventures to share today is what I've learned. A lot of you have adventures to share. Right, so I think I'm caught up for the most part. There's some ongoing discussion around LDS pioneers, so keep that going, you guys. You never know, maybe you'll find a relation or a connection amongst you, which is always delightful for us. So I said that we would probably be a little short today, and we're gonna be. I think this has been good. It's been fun to hear about your adventures. I am hopeful that all of you will have a really wonderful weekend. We're going to go ahead and cut it off. So thank you all very much for being with us. Thank you for watching and being loyal to Find My Past and being a part of our community. We appreciate you all so very much. Can't really say that enough. It's fantastic to get to know you through your stories and your comments and your ancestors, but to engage with you every week is something really special, and we really, really value it. So with that, have a fantastic weekend. Share your stories with us. We always love to hear from you. Let me see if I can find an email to throw up really quick. If you find something really cool, we want to know about it. discoveries@findmypast.com. We'd love to talk to you and feature you on our blog or one of these videos or elsewhere. So let us know what you discover. And some of these stories you shared today would actually be great ones to send in, so don't be shy. Okay. Have a great weekend, and thank you all very much, and we will see you next week.